payments doubled, and now they can't pay their houses, so they lost them because of the unintended consequences.
It's even worse than that, because he indicated that redlining was the cause of the failure of the banking industry, because the government had made the banking industry go out and make risky mortgages in the black community, where if that federal government had not interceded, they would not have made those loans because they were not acceptable risk. I am telling you, I was in the banking industry when all of that nonsense occurred. Nonsense in the sense that it was not the redlining that caused the crash of the banking industry. It was the loans, what they call the loans where you would go out. The example that we were given in the banking industry of this nonsense that was going on is, I, as a white farmer, would have an acre of land, and ordinarily that land would be worth $100 an acre. Then what would happen is, some big developer would come along, buy your land for $100 an acre. It's still only worth $100 an acre. Then that developer would go to his appraiser and say, look, Joe Schmo, my appraiser, I'm not going to just have this as vacant land at $100 an acre. I am going to build this magnificent structure, this development on this land. And it's going to be worth $100,000 an acre. And I want you to put me what they called, in the industry, it was legal, a reuse appraisal for this land. Even though I bought it for $100 an acre, I'm going to develop it such that it's going to be worth $100,000 an acre when I finish with it. So his appraiser, white, would write this appraisal indicating this reuse of this land is going to be worth, this 1 acre, it's going to be worth $100,000. But it wasn't only 1 acre, it was obviously tens of hundreds of acres. Then they would go to their banker, who was their great and wonderful banker, and say, oh, look, Joe, now you know Sam over here, he's giving me an appraisal that says this is worth $100,000. I know I bought it for him, but then you can loan me 90% of the value of the reuse appraisal. Then they would go to their accountant. And this is how the great and wonderful Arthur Anderson, that used to be the one and only top accounting firm in the whole world, went out of business.
Let me ask you this. Knowing that when you see this kind of behavior, is this someone you want to have as your president?
No, except for the fact that I want Donald Trump even worse.
Okay, so for you it's get Donald Trump out at all costs.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
But the first step is to make sure that we don't have somebody that may be a second Donald Trump. All right now. All right now.
Right, what do you have to say?
They went a little further than that. What they did was brought in the AIG to insure loans.
Sure.
And then they bundled the loans and then sold them secondary and tertiary market, which is what crashed the economy. Then when the people came to collect their money from the insurance companies, it wasn't enough money to pay. And that's why they had to go and raid the government coffers. Guiding in that crowd had to go and get their $500 million in order to build out the insurance companies, because it was all misappropriations. But he never looked at that.
Well, and none of them do. Name some politicians that do.
They do what?
That look into that issue or preventing it from happening again, because they're back at the same place now.
Well, see, but this
Okay,
is,
so this is not a Bloomberg issue.
well,
is my
no,
point.
what is the Bloomberg issue is that he oversaw and expanded stop and frisk,
Okay.
which did get people killed, and he was unapologetic about it.
Until he started running for president.
Literally, until he started running.
And blaming on red line.
Well,
And then blamed it, well.
And predatory lending.
And so.
It's not just redlining.
Well, he said redlining.
Oh, well,
Okay, no,
okay.
I'm just saying, so my question is it offensive to you that he put the collapse of the economy on lending money to black and brown people, or really on black folk, and black and brown people? Is it offensive to you that he expanded stop and frisk, and that got people beaten and killed? Do you think that black people should forgive him? And should they forget and then move forward? I mean, what do you think?
Well, I live here in Chicago, so I understand Stop and Frisk was in New York, but it was here
No,
too.
I said it's national. I said it's
Okay, so I'm not identifying, I can identify more with what's going on in Chicago.
No, but it's
This is not a Bloomberg
No,
issue.
Well, it's a Bloomberg issue in that he is elevated, he's national. He's running for the president. He's running for
It isn't a non-starter for me. I think I said that at the
Yeah,
beginning.
the question is it?
It is not.
Okay, why
It
not?
is not. It just isn't for me,
You need to
okay?
look at other things that he's done.
Yes, absolutely. And if it were just New York, then I would say, maybe
Yeah,
there
but
is
this is not
something
just
to it.
New York.
Right. So it's here. It's being carried out by just as many black officers as there are white
Right, but
in their
I'm
own
saying-
neighborhoods.
But I'm saying it's the blue wall, because everybody's got blue when they put on that badge, right?
Okay.
So
You're right.
it's a culture.
Mhm.
So the question is this something, stop and frisk, is the policy itself, was it so offensive to you? Because it did get like.
The abuse of it was, and it seems like no one wanted to address the abuse of it.
No,
Or,
people
wait a minute, or do something to put something in its place.
Well, you know what? Okay, it existed more than 30 years before Bloomberg's term as mayor.
Mhm.
The problem was that it expanded exponentially under his watch, and when you hear what he said at the Aspen Institute 5 years ago, you say, well, wait a minute, he was racially profiling. Did that bother you at all? I mean, because it's just very interesting. There's certain lines that you don't cross with different communities. And I'm just wondering if black people have any of those lines.
Insult level.
An insult level. No, I'm wondering, because I'm seeing all of these black elected officials who are now running out, who are now being slow walked out across the stage, and they are telling us, well, this is, Mike Bloomberg is, yeah, I know that happened, but we can let that go because, or maybe just let's put this in context, because he's going to do more and get more money into our community, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, did Eric Garner was killed trying to sell some blue cigarettes?
Yeah.
And then there are some other folks who've been traumatized.
Mhm.
And this young boy I just read about, who had been put in Rikers, who had been falsely arrested, and he had been abused as a young teenager, and then when he came out, he killed himself. I mean, I'm saying, stop and frisk does not just end, when you are felt up and down at the, when you're stopped and frisked. You get arrested, you're put in jail, if your mama, like you said, your grandmama, granddaddy, people have to mortgage their homes, on and on. I mean, a lot of stuff, happened because of that.
I hear you.
And I'm just wondering about our insult level. Do we have one? Because it seems to me that people can do anything to us, right? And then if they just come back, if they come to our church, one time, and they get the spirit, sway on the 1 and 3 even. Well, good. I'm just wondering,
You give us no credit.
I didn't respond after.
Al Sharpton.
come on here, girl.
Al Sharpton miscredited. March 10,000 people stopped and made a litmus test. for his endorsement of this mayor. So there was very public outrage against Stop and Frisk. And the fact that he didn't repent until he ran for president.
And wait a minute, and Reverend Sharpton meets every Saturday, and it was an issue every Saturday at his Saturday morning call. Stop and frisk was an issue. Let's not act as if people didn't say anything.
That was not
I wasn't accusing you of that. I'm just saying, folks actually did say, because my grandson's in the jail right now, or my son, or, or my daughter was leaving. Because these things will happen, I'm sorry.
At some point, we are
I need you to lead
beginning,
in.
at some point, we're beginning to sound like the people we're complaining about. Very unprincipled. Very unprincipled. We should have an insult level. The first thing, I have started this journey as an independent. I voted my conscience, and I still do that. Then I became a part of the Democratic Party, and here we have a Republican who has found it convenient for himself to join me because he sees an old hole in my bucket. And I take issue with that because oftentimes people come to us because it is suggested that we just take anything. And if you want to make a big whatever, come to the Negro thing because they are open for anything. I think that we as a race and as a people who are complaining about injustice and fairness from others, we've got to be very, very principled ourselves, and we cannot just let you talk about I'll take anything before I'll take this. No, I want to remain principled to the very end. Thank you.
So what do you say?
Is this an insult level? Is this a,
It's my insult level that you are here in my party. Go to, if you're serious about being an alternative, go after Trump. Go to Trump. Face him in his own party. Why are you over here?
Facing me off and moving my
Why are
party.
you over in the Democratic Party? Run in your party. You be the candidate to defeat the person in your party. Stay in your lane. You know, people tell us all the time, it's an expression among middle-aged blacks. Drive your own car. Stay in your lane. Go down your direction. I don't think they just hop skip all over into the Democratic Party, and I am very upset that it sounds as if the Democrats don't have the strength to say, stay in your lane. And I think when they accepted Bernie, it said, oh, he's a socialist.
He's a Democratic socialist.
He's
really an FDR movie.
Drive his car. He should drive his own car. He should be a third party. That's what he should be. He shouldn't be over here mixing and blending what we have. So I just say we have to stand on principle, or we sound for the matter of convenience, just like the other guy.
Well, with Bernie, I disagree with you, but I hear you. But I disagree because I think that he's an FDR redeemer. I think that we need to have space in the party to have the views that he has.
But we should have had a meeting about
I
that.
think you need to pick up the mic so that you can hear this.
Then we should have had a meeting about that at the Democratic Convention. You just don't spring things on people. And that's the purpose of your convention, to come out with the little things that you want to include.
But he had to work to get there.
He didn't do it last year.
He ran
and last
in
time.
2016.
He did.
Look,
Was this discussed on the floor?
You know what, I don't know.
It was not discussed.
They kept blocking him, and you know what else? First of all, the progressives wanted Elizabeth Warren to run in 2016, and she refused. And he kind of did what Reverend did in 1984, because no one had the nerve to go up against Reagan.
Well,
So I
Elizabeth,
need you to grab that.
Elizabeth Warren functions with some integrity. She saw this woman candidate, which was Hillary Clinton, and she did not want to taint and disturb what she was doing. So she waited her turn, and I am extremely proud of her, and I feel that she functioned with integrity.
Even though progressives needed a voice in 2016?
I feel she functioned with integrity.
I think she did too. I mean, that's the woman thing to me is not the same as progressive. But
Bernie ran in 2016.
that's what I'm saying.
And he also said that he was going to support the candidate, whether he
And he
had a
did.
nominee or not. And he did. So why in heaven's name should I trust that he will support the Democratic candidate if he's not that person?
So what are you saying about Bloomberg?
I just already told you what I said. Bloomberg. And I don't think I need to get into that anymore. That I don't trust the man as far as I can throw him.
Well, let me ask you this, because you wanted to say something.
Okay, so the one thing that I wanted to say as I was listening to what you were saying concerning him. So I'm a manager in a bank, and if I create a process in place, and I put a process in place, and then my people are, everybody's doing what I asked them to do, and then of course down the line there is some issues with the process that I put in place. As a manager, I would think that, I know that it'll fall back on me because I did not go back to inspect what I expected my people to do. So in terms of what you guys what you're talking about with him, I would say if you put a process in place and you don't follow through and you know there's some issues that are happening on the end, and maybe everybody's not following suit, then as you as the leader, you have to go back and fix the problem. So I'm hearing what this young lady said is, no, they should have dealt with the issues, the corruptness that was coming out of it. And yes, it should have been dealt with, but it doesn't mean that it's a wrong thing. I lived in Inglewood, and I grew up in Inglewood, and I saw a lot of individuals die from gun violence, and then as an adult. So, stop and frisk to me, it's been helpful, because of saving lives, but then also there's some issues with it. So if he didn't go back and he didn't fix the issue, him as a leader, that would discourage me as when you become the president, will you not look into things again when you create a policy or things like that?
I agree, and I heard Phyllis and her comments. I am an avid television watcher. I don't like doing television myself, but I enjoy watching it. I watch Dateline, Forensic, whatever. I watch all of the programs. White people on these programs kill each other all day long with no repeats. I mean, to the point that they have enough murders to make movies out of.
Wait a minute.
These-
Weekend TV on MSNBC.
Oh, sure.
And our drive-bys, and I'm not excusing, I think they're horrible. Death is horrible, period. But it is we are disproportionately advertised. And if you watch any of these programs, and it's a set of them on television, they kill and murder all day long, and in a very sophisticated way.
Yeah.
Tying people and dropping them in the lake. In the back of the car and digging holes in the cornfield.
And also,
And in
if you
their
go to the Daily
backyard.
Mail every day, you'll find out about all the murders. Wait a minute, and in England too, and all around the world.
Mhm.
Will you not?
Well, we're not saying
I'm
that
not-
others aren't killing each other as well.
But Ms. Jackson,
We know
you were
that,
saying
but I am
about
more
that.
connected. I live in the Black represent the black community, so I'm more concerned with what's going on in my community. I'm not really, okay, I know white, Japanese, Chinese, they all kill each other. But this affects me.
What you said at the top was that, when you talked about the 95%, you said, is that not true? I said, no. And no,
Okay.
Dwight said, you know, they're looking for black folks.
I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with that at all. I know that it's skewed every time there's a crime on television. We're kind of like, well, I wonder who it was, if it was one of us this time. And yes, I agree that they do concentrate on the crime in our areas more often than others. I don't know why.
Because
Maybe it's because it's white
look
media.
a certain way. This is.
Is it because it's white media?
Share.
This is what, yes, because it's the white media.
Okay,
It is owned.
I understand
It is
that.
owned and sponsored by them.
I get that.
I mean, it's almost like, and I have all sorts of gripes, perhaps.
No.
I think it's my age. When I saw the movie, She's Got to Have It, I felt and early, you know, to find an African American filmmaker who suggests that black women got to have it is playing into the old stereotype that we can never be raped, we can never be violated because we have to have it. And now don't tell me this is new to you.
Oh, no.
Okay, so anything that plays into we are less than other human beings is always on display in society to make sure that those who come in to America have the opinion that we are less than what others are. I collect little salt and pepper shakers and during occupied Japan, when they had little black people, the Aunt Jemima, and we were monkeys, and certainly the Japanese didn't come over here and figure that out. Somebody went over there with these images, us eating the watermelon, and they brought these salt and pepper shakers, and they certainly did not make them for me. So the image of us is passed on throughout the world now, and that creates a problem for me. As I visit other countries, and I see the same poverty, and I see the same things that's happening here as we ship and export this kind of rude and illicit behavior.
So then, which takes me back to election 2020. Are there any issues? Do we have an incel level? Should we have one? What should we be doing about someone who has espoused policies that have been so harmful to black?
I have heard some commentators and some people say that is an insult level. So I have heard people say that they wouldn't vote for him just because of that.
But
which I accept that.
They also suggest, and I should check my information before I repeat it, they said when the court acknowledged the wrongdoing of those young men in Central Park, that they were awarded a large sum of money, and Bloomberg objected to the amount of money that was awarded to these young men.
We also, with Stop and Frisk, the Center for Constitutional Rights, took this case to the Supreme Court, and they lost. I mean, no, and New York City lost, and he countersued. Because he said, no, we racially profiling and all that, no, we were right to do this, because this is what the murder is. And the murderers are.
So I'm weighing, I am seriously weighing and who to vote for. But when I wake up the morning after I vote, I've lived with Jim Crow. I've lived with some of the meanest people, murderers of Emmett Till, who confessed and joked about it. So I've seen America at its worst. And I'm worried as to where we really going from here. Because I saw a man who said that he may stay in the White House. And now we have a guy who created a third term talking about he wants to go in the White House, while others are saying, oh, this guy is so bad we can't even stop him. Well, here we got more $1 zillion.
Well, now,
But you think we're not going to be able to stop this one too?
well, let me say, Tiger Lily said we had great points and questions. Lorraine said 80% of those, hey, Lorraine Dunkley, hey, 80% of those stopped were found innocent. They could just stop because I would never defend this. Pearl says, Phyllis, have you or anyone you know ever been experienced being stopped in prison? You
I have. No.
But you know people.
Right, yes.
Okay.
I mean, it didn't go any further, thank God.
Okay.
And they weren't killed or beaten, but they were stopped.
Well, Terry Jackson says she will not vote for him. She will write in her preferred candidate. Everybody like and share, like and share, like and share, and go on to my YouTube page, Santita Jackson Show, and like and subscribe. Well, we want to hear from you because Lorraine says this is an informative discussion. Tony says that Bernie's been around since 2016. He didn't spring anything on anybody. And Cleola says she loves the mixture at the table. I just want to acknowledge it. So many people who are tuning in tonight. And we're going to continue to acknowledge you and continue to send your comments and let us know what you're thinking. Because you know, in this environment, part of the reason that we're doing this, in this environment, I grew up around a table where people had a lot of fun, but there were a lot of serious discussions. And it was about our survival. And I fear that we're sending our black children out unarmed. You know, they're not forewarned, so they're not forearmed. And so they don't know what to do with the police. They don't know what to do when they have a teacher who insults them in the classroom. There is so much that they do not know. And they don't know about an insult. And that is what, to me, is saying that, you know, I'm saying for a whole lot of reasons you decide who you're going to vote for. But at some point, when people insult you, and when they assault you, the way that we've been insulted, you ought to ask them questions.
I don't agree with that. I don't agree that they're not prepared. These children are more aware and express themselves when they feel that something is unfair, and they're listened to, they're heard. A teacher nowadays can't really say much of anything to a student out of order, out of line. Or that teacher is thrown out. The student isn't.
You just had some kids. Well, you know what?
So I kind of disagree that they're, I mean, granted, they don't take it seriously. I will grant you that.
That to me is dangerous.
You know, even once you tell, and how do you make them take it serious? You tell them, and you tell them.
Jewish kids, Jewish parents send their kids to Hebrew school.
Well, we
and
don't
you know
do
what
that.
they do? The Holocaust, well, that's a shame on us. Because the Holocaust is as real to a Jewish child who's born today as it was to a Jewish child, as it was to Anne Frank.
I don't disagree
and
with you.
No,
on that.
And if we are going to survive, because unlike anybody else, we are with a readily identifiable other. My black child could only be black, half white, quarter white, whatever it is. They can only be black. And our children are not clear. Our children will see someone say that shot and frisk. Let me tell you, 16 to 25, I can Xerox it, I can say what I'm going to say. Let me tell you, I'm going to frisk you. And they said a boy, a black boy, I just saw him on my timeline. This young man, you know this boy. He was a teenager, a young teenager who was sent to Rikers Island, which is a horrible prison in New York City. He was wrongly arrested, wrongfully convicted. And he was so abused in the prison. When he came out and he won a settlement from the city, he killed himself. How many times has that happened? And when is it going to be enough?
But Santita,
And I'm seeing, I'm just saying, let me just say this. Okay. I'm watching this man who has committed $1 billion of his dollars. He's got 60 more where that came from. He said, I'm going to defeat Trump. I am insulted as a black person who is evidence of a white man's mischief. I'm insulted when someone comes to me and says, Trump is the most horrible thing that's ever happened to America. I'm like, really? Are you serious? He's more awful than the Indian killer, Andrew Jackson.
Slave.
Wait. He's more awful than Woodrow Wilson, who screamed "Birth of the Nation" in the White House. Really? Oh, wait. Who are you talking to? I'm talking American history, not Black history. I said, wait, no. America's done some things that have been horrific, and I'm not gonna let you forget it. And it's happened to me. It's happened to our people. American people.
I hear you.
But we who are darker than blue.
Right, and we're not
So
passing that on.
So I'm
agree.
and I'm saying for our children not to have that, when every other child, my Italian friends, they carry
Chinese.
they come in because they were not Black until after the Second World War. They come in here and they bring all that with them. They take that forward. Black folks try to leave all that behind. Please, we're sitting up here still looking for Sally Hemings. We don't want to talk about Harriet Tubman. Harriet Tubman freed us. Sally Hemings freed no one. Be quiet.
That's true. And they make memes and like some of the memes that they're making about Harriet Tubman. This is our young generation, and it's not funny. And you know they should be learning more. But yeah, you saw Harriet Tubman. They put on a nipple when they did something like this, and that's not funny.
Wakanda, which is a comic. I mean, wait. Hold on. Harriet Tubman, Wakanda Forever. I mean, we wanted to see Wakanda. I thought that was a great movie, but I was very clear it was Marvel Comics.
I hear you.
I mean,
I don't disagree with that.
I'm just saying.
But at what point are you,
Okay.
the younger generation, at what point are we making them proud of their history, and yet at the same time telling them you're not a victim? Don't play the victim role because the world sees you as a victim.
No, that's on me. I see myself as a victim.
No, I'm not saying we tell them that verbally and say you're a victim, but if you're constantly telling a person the negative,
I tell them you're a victim in the process.
well, what does that mean?
What it means is that
And how does a millennium interpret victim in process?
Hold it straight up. That because you
any day now, you have the potential to become victimized.
Anyone
It is
does.
no,
Everyone does.
But the proportionality is more on my side than the side. Particularly if you got a stop and frisk policy,
Which we don't have anymore.
Oh, really?
According to the law,
Difficult to
wait a minute, is it illegal in Chicago or not?
It's illegal.
It's
Are you
illegal,
using
but that
drug
has nothing to do with
America?
the practices and operations that go on out here in the streets. It's illegal to racially profile someone.
Stop and frisk is illegal.
It's illegally, yes. It's illegal to stop someone
That's
in
the
their
law.
car without any provocation. But it goes on all the time in the Black community when some Black male is driving down the street, has not committed any traffic violation, he is stopped and pulled over. You know the term driving while Black, and that still goes on. It is not, no, it's not legal. But that does not negate the practices, Phyllis.
I agree.
that go
Therefore,
on.
it's the abuse of it. Getting rid of it and saying it's illegal now really means nothing because they're still doing it.
And
Unless
that's
you
why we
deal
have
with
to
the
get-
abusers.
That's why we have to get people in office who are going to stop it, who are going to make sure that it does not happen.
In
And
order-
if police are doing that, fire them.
Absolutely. Therefore,
Get rid of them.
we have the cameras now because the person in office can only do so much. They can just say, if we find that you do this, this is what we're going to do. We have cameras that each officer is supposed to wear whenever they stop a person. Okay? That is, I believe, cutting down on this abuse because they don't want to lose their job. Well, it's illegal for them to turn it off.
But they have not had any repercussions,
And
Phyllis.
there should be My
They have not had
point is, no matter how many laws you put in place, if you don't follow up, if there's no repercussions, if you're not making sure it's followed, it's meaningless. That's all I'm saying.
That is why, Phyllis, that you have to put people in political office whose responsibility it is to enforce the laws, no matter who it is, white, black, blue, or green.
Medallion?
And we have to, not just that, hold the ones that even at our level, the ones that are patrolling our neighborhoods accountable. Because you can still put, Mayor Lightfoot doesn't support it. We know that.
I don't know that.
Well,
But you know, what you
she does.
no,
I agree, but they still stop and dress.
I know that. I know that.
Because they still do it. Because they've done it to me so many times that I'm like used to it.
And now what?
And then, you know, they supposed to have a female officer to frisk a woman.
Absolutely, yes.
But I have a male officer.
Well, okay, my question to you is,
And all I do is just drive, pick up my kids, or I do my errands.
are these things, and I'm not saying they're not being reported, are they being followed up? Because I know that it's happening, and I know they're abusing it. But if you're not, and I understand a lot of times you just want to get away from them and move on with your life.
Safely.
You don't want to
Right.
file charges. You don't want to face these police officers again. But that's the only way it's going to stop.
That's true. But when you go to court and the judge sees she didn't do nothing wrong and they toss it. But then they stop you again. For the simplest thing, mine was just because my tail light went out. Do they have to stop me and tell me to get out the car and press me?
I'm not sure what their policy is.
Okay.
They have some crazy.
I
seriously,
believe you.
some of their
I
policies
believe
are just crazy.
But
The police policies, some of their policies are
Like
just
stop and frisk.
crazy. Well, they don't have, that's a
Like
policy,
stop and frisk.
that's a policy that is no longer legal. Now they still have policies on the book that just don't make any sense, that they can legally do. There was no repercussions to the officer
But-
because he didn't have any reason for stopping you.
But the question
right, it's
is,
just simple.
do you elect a guy for president who enforced it, who made it legal, who reinforced the legality of it? That's the question.
I hear you.
Yeah, it didn't fix the issue. That's the question. What are the consequences of his behavior?
That's right.
Do you reward him by making him president?
Because he said,
I
"I'm
agree,
sorry."
and that's a good argument. I'm not saying I am or that I haven't decided who I'm voting for, but that's an excellent argument. I don't disagree with that.
I mean, because to me, that is the question that I'm trying to get at. You know, when we talk about an insult level and all of that, to me, when people are coming to the black community, and they only come to us every few years.
That's the only time we
That's
see
the only
it.
time they come. Before you get who you want, you need to get what you need. And my question is, forget that. The thing is, the election is the end of the beginning, not the beginning of the end. That's why you have to support your organizations, because they're your advocates. Other people, a friend of mine, God rest his soul, Danny Schechter, Emmy award-winning television producer. He was to the left of Karl Marx. Extremely, very, very far left. But he said, even with organizations that were Jewish, that were far right in their ideology and practices, he said, they defend me. Therefore, he said, Santita, I've got to support you. Because he was lamenting the fact that Reverend was out here, this was 30 years ago. He said, watching your father beg for money breaks my heart, because I've been in the room when he's trying to get them jobs. When he's trying to broker the deal to create businesses, to open. So at some point we have to say, and Reverend is 80 now almost, Parkinson's. He belongs to history. He has done what he is going to do. This is not about him. This is about what we're going to do to defend ourselves. To be in defense of ourselves. And wait a minute, do you reward someone who treated you this horribly?
Well, how do you?
Because when he went to Pastor A.R. Bernard's church in New York,
Yeah.
because so many friends are still there. You know what he was met with?
But
People were so angry.
and Reverend Bernard.
No. Well, I don't know if they were angry with him. They were angry that Mayor Bloomberg had the nerve after all
He was
these
allowed
years.
to step into
No,
that
no,
pulpit.
yeah, I get it. And I've been to Pastor Bernard's church, and at one point he said he did not let people be political in his pulpit, but I get it. I'm not mad at anybody.
Right.
I'm just saying, as we move into 2020, as people are coming together, as we're watching people, these black elected officials on television, try to convince me who I need to vote for, and look at me condescendingly oft times, and say, well, I really don't know what I'm talking about. I'm like, wait a minute, oh, I've had a brother who's been pulled over, and he's the darkest one of us, so he gets pulled over all the time. That's real too. Jonathan gets pulled over all the time. Wherever he goes, he's gonna get pulled over. And every time you are approached by the police, that's a death sentence for you. You gotta figure out how you're gonna move so you can live. If you are a woman or a man, black.
Is he in a good mood?
Is he in a good mood today? I don't know. Because this guy put my brother in the back of the car all twisted up while he's trying to open up his doors. And his friend kept saying, this is Jesse Jackson's son. Jonathan said, don't say that. Maybe by saying that, by repeating that out of fear, it might have saved their lives. Because finally he ran his license. And maybe after some interminable period of time, man, why didn't you tell us who you were? Jonathan said, we're going to let you go. Jonathan said, no, you're going to charge me with something. I sat in the back of this car, I thought about my wife, my kids, my mom, my siblings. Hey, because I know you all could have killed me. And it happens all the time.
If anybody wants to see it.
And I'm just saying, for a mayor, for someone who not only, who defended it,
Right.
who told me to go like this and said, no. This is, and sat in a private meeting. The Aspen Institute is real exclusive. It's out in the middle of the woods in Aspen. It is fabulous. And they have all of the elite conversations there. All of the thought leaders of the world go to the Aspen Institute, and it's private. So he sat in that chair and was very, very comfortable. He was safe. Somebody pulled that tape. And his media organization, which is a formidable media organization, the Bloomberg News Service, they tried to suppress it. This black guy, who was an independent journalist, pulled it and put it on Twitter. He just put it out there. That's what happened. That's the only reason we know about it.
If you want
And they he just put the audio so you could, he said, I want you to hear all that he said. He said, no, this is why we know we just 95% of all the murders in New York City. I mean, for real?
The town of the 5 families. You go to the town of the 5
I
families.
can't understand you.
5 families that run the mafia. The town of the Godfather.
Say it one more time.
New York City, the town of the Godfather, town of Costa Nostra. Costa Nostra. That same town, the town that Al Capone came from. That same town of Luciani. But all you can do is focus on black kids. Something's wrong with that picture.
If one wants to have a reality check, you need to watch the movie Queen and Slim. I don't know if anybody has seen that movie, Queen and Slim. And I would suggest that all white people go and seek out that movie and watch it. And then come back and tell me about stop and frisk and all this other nonsense about driving while black.
Well, should he be
Doesn't
forgiven?
occur.
Should he be forgiven? Should we forget? What do you think should happen?
I don't think we should forget,
Okay.
because forgetting without a solution to the problem only exacerbates.
Is there not a solution?
So when you see these black elected
Is there not a
officials,
solution to the problem?
well, my question for you is, when you see these black elected officials out here who are supporting him, and I think there's a
I want to
disconnect.
ask them
Yeah.
why, other than the money that he has promised.
It's not the money enough.
Excuse me? Excuse me? I said, I want you to ask them, other than the money that he is throwing out there to them and the community, as in buying our silence, what else?
You think it's
has he
buying our
done?
silence?
No.
I'm asking you.
I believe it is, he is attempting to buy our silence because he thinks that money can buy any and all things.
Can it?
Not for me, it doesn't, and it can't. Can't buy my soul.
Do you think many of us feel this way because he's rising in the national polls?
I don't know
Now,
who's,
because you have-
I
well, you
don't
do
know
have a
who's
big
making
ad.
him rise.
Well, he has an incredible media campaign and probably
Of
the
course.
most prominent commercial.
And I
features
have been
President
told that he
Obama.
has been spending so much money in the black community.
But have you seen this commercial with President Obama? in it?
Yes, I did
It's like
see that
it's almost
commercial.
like an endorsement.
Yes, but then President Obama said that he did not approve of it. But my retort to that is, if you didn't approve of it, tell him to take it down.
Because if you're just walking through if you're just walking past the television and you see it, your presumption is that he endorses it.
Correct.
You don't hear all of that.
Correct.
So, I mean, I'm saying, so what should, yeah, I mean, so what did you feel? You were like,
I
that's
thought
his guy. So how
the
did
first
that
that, I mean, now that I know that he doesn't support it, I'm like, yeah, take it down.
Right. Obama, the president should have told him, take it down.
But do you really think that you don't should have told him to take it down?
He might have told him. No, no, no way.
You don't think so?
No, no, I'm sorry. No.
Okay, so what do you think?
And yes, when I first seen it, I thought he endorsed it. After seeing it a couple of times, then, and I really listened to it, I said, wait a minute. He's making it seem that he endorses believe.
Of course.
Obama on my side. You know.
Do you think that's helping him rise in the polls?
Yes, I do. And that's what Obama should have just stepped in and said, wait a minute, if he says he didn't endorse it, I agree with you.
Take it down.
Well, maybe he is not as distant from him as we think.
Are not the,
I don't know.
are not the other candidates making such an issue about this because he's not running in the prior elections? He's only waiting for back Tuesday.
Well,
So
you
he's
know.
not an issue at this point, as far as they're concerned?
Who is
The
it?
other candidates, Bloomberg.
Oh, Bloomberg's an issue for them because they feel like he's buying an election every year.
Okay, but they're talking about that, the money that he's spreading, but I don't hear them reiterating his support of stop and frisk or redlining. I mean, I hear it, but not a lot.
You heard Elizabeth Warren say it. And the thing is, if black people on the ground aren't going to say anything, people are not going to touch it. It's when we get agitated that it becomes an issue.
Well, for what you're telling me, we're agitating.
Some, but not enough of it. Because I think if we collect, whenever we collectively get upset, things change. I mean, when black folks collectively decided that Jim Crow was over, it was done. There are things that when we decided we were going to elect a black man as president, it was done.
Well, we weren't gonna sit at the back of us.
When we decided we were going to have the first real run of the presidency, it was done. That's what we do. When we made up mind is the most powerful thing in the world. So, you know, and I do believe that President Obama could tell him to take it down. He hasn't. And it is facilitating a rise in the polls. But my question is, even with all of that, because that is his choice and that is his right. My question is, what is right for us on the ground? Because on the ground, our sons, our nephews, our daughters, our nieces, our godchildren, the people we love, and we can walk out of here and have to deal with the police. Or, I mean, and even say it was ruled unconstitutional, right? Stop and frisk, but it happened. And I think we need to look back at all of the carnage. Attorney C.K. Hoffman is the president-elect of the National Bar Association, which is the largest and oldest black bar association in the world, 65,000 black lawyers. She calls it stop, frisk, beat, and kill. She said there's no other way to, she said, now look, not only am I a lawyer, but I'm a mother of 2 black boys. And when I hear stop and frisk, she said, every time, and I've been with her because she's a friend, when she's got to get her son in that Uber and call me call me when you get in the car, call me when you're getting out the car, call me when you get in the door, because these are nightmares that black mothers or mothers of black children have. And I'm saying at some point, he's got to be answerable beyond, well, I said it and I apologized. Not when you need my vote.
Well, I hear what you're
Honey,
saying,
the
but
easy girl loses in the courtship game. You cannot just give it away.
well, a lot of people feel that was history, that was in the past.
You know it's true.
And what's going to happen, they're looking more toward the future and what he's going to do in the future. So I don't know what else to tell you other than not everybody's going to constantly keep pulling up what he did in the past. I mean, the black leaders that are supporting him for a reason because they feel like he's going to make a change. He's changed from that person he was.
Has he?
I don't know.
No,
All you can,
well,
he is.
are we supposed to just believe and hope he change?
Well, he said he had. He said he apologized. That's all you. I don't know that that's enough, Santita. But at some point, you have to decide for you whether it's enough.
I hear you, but I think deciding individually is just not. Reverend Nash, what do you say?
I just
I
tend
love your
to.
input, Phyllis. Yes, ma'am.
I know she's got good input. It's a dilemma, and in many respects, much of our experience in America has been choosing between the lesser 2 evils.
Yeah.
How you might feel about Bloomberg today, I think, may be determined on how you feel about Trump. I mean, is this presidency a mortal danger to the planet? Is defeating Donald Trump the #1 goal? I think that's the #1 question. I don't think it's whether or not Bloomberg. I think you're going to vote in the primaries, if you're a Democrat, for which Democrat you think you want. But then after that, after somebody wins the nomination, that person needs to be in the strongest position that they need to be in if you feel like Donald Trump is taking this nation to the brink of fascism and lawlessness.
Well, have we
And
not
it's
been
put the
moving-
planet at peril.
Have we not been moving toward an imperial presidency and fascism for some time? It didn't start with it, right?
Didn't start.
We've been moving toward an imperial presidency for decades. Even you can even go back to Lincoln, because when he suspended our rights.
Or FDR, for that matter.
Well, I have to say,
Who stacked the Supreme Court.
I have to say, we can keep on going with that. And I guess for me personally, I think Trump is problematic, highly problematic. But for me to go past, I'm not going to let you insult me and just put someone else in his place. I just can't do that. See, my politics for me just can't be predicated on someone. Oh, I just got to get Trump out at all costs. That individual kind of politics jammed us. We lost 1,000 seats trying to protect one person for 8 years. Instead of looking at what we needed collectively, we're not even talking about down ballot. You've got Jamie Harrison who's running against Lindsey Graham, who is fairly weak. Lindsey Graham has never won with more than about 55% of the vote. We need to be talking about him. We need to be talking about Mitch McConnell, who's got a 37% approval rating. This is one of the most powerful men in America. 37% approval rating in his state. We need to be talking about these, because if you get someone else, if you get a Democrat in the White House and you don't change that Senate, you still got a problem. That's true.
And with all this money, it makes you wonder why some of that money didn't go to get rid of Lindsay. Some of that money did not go to McConnell.
Oh,
That
you want to say something? Oh, okay. Oh, okay, thank you.
No, I'm done. That makes me worry. That if you're serious about breaking this foolishness up. It worries me that if you're very serious with all this money about breaking this foolishness up, why haven't you sent some of that money out to the candidates that's opposing these people who are holding these spaces? Because you certainly have enough money. Or do you want to get in and tell me how many problems you having with them, as I have heard from everybody else? I think this is a time, and I'm a Democrat, and I keep saying that because that's what some of us are. And I like to hold to it. As I said, you're a Republican. And nobody's interfering with you and your Republican politics. Then stay in your lane. Drive your car. Let us finish our little fight up here and decide who we want and ride or die.
Because you know what's very interesting.
That's the way.
You know what's
That's the
interesting.
way I feel.
Reverend Hatch, I hear you. Reverend Hatch, is what they're doing is President Trump sent people to Iowa to be disruptive. He sent people to Nevada to be disruptive. I mean, they know that, because, this is chaos that we've got here. It's pure chaos. And I'm saying, in the midst of this chaos, we ought to be looking, we got to look straight to that end, to that goal. And figure out what it is that we need. Because it's not enough to me for Bloomberg to pass out this money. I get it. He's going to do it. I got it.
And it doesn't hurt him.
It doesn't hurt him. But I'm just trying to figure out what our ask should be. Because what is our agenda? We got problems with the public school system. We need health care. We have black women. It takes us 20 months to make what a white man makes in 12 months. It takes a Latino 23 months. There's some real issues out here, and we're having a personality contest. We're looking at how much I hate Trump. I don't hate him that much. I don't hate him at all. I'm like, he's just, he is doing what Reagan did. He's just more, he's not as polished. Reagan was an actor who they made a president. Really?
Well, that ask though should be more specific. The same ask could be for anybody.
I agree with you.
And so it's my problem with the whole thing is that we almost speak right now as that the only two options are Trump and Bloomberg. And there are other people running who got policies that are more conducive to our needs. I think Bloomberg road is going to be the road that we get to the base. I told you that money can buy you a lot of things. It can't buy you charisma. And he has very little charisma. And so when the candidate's going to ask him the hard questions for their benefit, we need somebody to ask the hard questions for our benefit. For our benefit. And I think that I totally agree. I know to some extent he is invested in some other candidates, but I think that his money could be better served, or as well served, by targeting some of these Senate seats and some of these seats that we lost under Obama, 1,000 seats, to take back the Senate.
Why do you think he's not doing that?
To some extent, he has done that. He's invested in some Senate seats. I don't think that he has done it he hasn't put $500 million in that, which is how much he put in his own campaign so far, it's $500 million. So I think that he can be better served for us if that's his strategy. But I think he also has a drive and zeal to want to be the president.
But I also think that he's pushing Democratic politics to the right. Because he's pushing Democratic politics to the right.
Well, it is far left.
Well, he's fine with me, because Medicare for all.
Well, that's just one issue. There's just so many other issues
that are just far left.
Why does it work for you? Speak up.
Well, my main concern is because of my main concern is the healthcare. Because a lot of people are in debt. It's expensive to go to the hospital. A lot of people has filed bankruptcy because of the medical bills. So,
Medicare for all. I don't know that I support that just yet. But I don't know the details of Medicare for all. I'm not supporting it to the exclusion of getting rid of the private industry.
Okay.
Now, I'm definitely not supporting it to that exclusion, but I do believe everyone should be covered and get fair Medicare, medical treatment. But are you going to destroy the private industry just to
Private
get it?
industry is driving people into bankruptcy.
I hear what you're saying, Santita.
No.
Okay, but
It's driving people into bankruptcy.
it's an industry that supports families.
No. It is an industry that administratively is sucking us dry.
It supports
Because
families.
there's a Medicare,
Okay.
there's a study that just came out that said Medicare for all would save 68,000 lives and $450 billion that just came out yesterday. They are playing a game with us on our lives. Most Americans forego, more than half of us forego medical treatment.
You're preaching to the choir.
No, I'm saying,
Okay.
you're a data person, I'm just trying to bring up the data.
But I heard all that.
No.
And I don't disagree with it.
Maybe they have.
Oh, okay.
And so most people are going past, at least half of us are going past medical treatment because we can't afford it. Even with private insurance.
Insurance.
I just,
In quotes.
insurance. I just got a bill, I don't know where I got this $600 bill from. I just opened my envelope yesterday. I guess, yeah, because $600 is a hit for me. I'm like, really? How did this happen? And then you had this woman, we did a story on her. I said, Dolly, look, that she had strep throat. It cost her $28,000. She has private insurance, but if she got a test because she got a culture for her throat out of network, by the time you get into that lab and that lab that's out of your network, she had a $28,000 bill.
We don't
Oh,
understand.
no, I'm just saying in other countries, in other Western industrialized countries, this is not the issue.
I understand the issue with people who have those kind of bills and don't have that kind of insurance. And are not able to get it. And are not able to pay a certain amount. Because they just can't do it. Now, I agree that there should be affordable health care for everybody. But I do not agree that the federal government should make me give up my health care policy if I don't choose to do so. Clearly, if this young lady needs health care, there ought to be a way that the government provides for that, but not at the expense of telling me that I have to give up my health care that I am satisfied with.
Okay, you know what, and you can keep it.
And that Medicare clause implies, and it says, that I don't have any options.
Well, how's the private insurance industry working for you?
I don't have any problem with it.
Okay, I do.
Maybe if I didn't make the money that I made, that probably would be an issue, but I don't have a
I
problem.
said, don't get sick one at a time.
Right.
I go to
Well,
the doctor.
Santita,
I'm saying like when you get
do-
sick, strep throat.
So do you want the private industry?
No, my husband has gotten sick. He has
Getting
a
rid of
terminal illness, and our health insurance has stepped up to every issue that he has
And you
had.
know what, and I think that is a great thing.
And that the government is going to tell me that I have to give that up
No.
And we know how well.
for
the
whatever
government-
it is that I'm supposed to be.
I think what-
The pie in the sky.
No, I don't. They
Not in this
They
one.
shouldn't, but I think what we need to first redo, one day I'm gonna bring in some people and explain what Medicare for all is, because that's not what it
It's a brand
is.
new bag.
And even with the best private insurance, you still typically have to pay 20.
You have to pay
20%.
20%.
And that is a lot of money. And if you have, because you could very easily, by getting sick, you could run up a 6-figure bill. That's it for you. Even when you make a nice amount of money. And we don't get into retirement or retirement age. So, but we're going to close this out because I wanted us to talk about as we go into 2020. I'm so glad you came here tonight. Excuse me, Reverend Hatch. I think it's very important that we have these conversations because we are about to have a primary here in Illinois.
March 17th.
But that's in Illinois. They are voting in Nevada on Saturday, and on the following Saturday they're going to be in South Carolina. And you have people who have never been to South Carolina. Been to Nevada.
That March 3rd is
Absolutely. And then right after 2 weeks after that, I'm saying we're going to see people who need us, and we play it very differently when they need you. They're so nice to you. They promise you things. Right? Right? They love you. They love you. I love you. I'm courting you. Because I'm trying to get you down that aisle. Yeah. I said that. So because I want you to act like you're trying to marry me. And so the thing is, a proposal is you lay out for me what you want to do. And I'm saying, no, I'm saying we don't do that. Other people, you know, we just look at other people say, this is what I need you to do. It's a quid pro quo. Absolutely. I don't see us doing that. And that for me, this is a very
I believe it is being done, because we don't see it. I believe that whoever he's talking to, those that are supporting him, he's promised them, they've asked him
yeah, but he's
something.
promised them, but what are they going to do for us?
Well, I hear what you're saying, but, you know, I'm sure
I'm
that.
saying promise them.
You're right.
But what do you want to do for me? After you got, it's 10. He's gets 2. Where is the love? Where is the love? You said you give it to me.
Well, I personally think we're giving him too much credit. I don't think Bloomberg is going, it's still one vote per person.
But you know, it's not just about him. I'm just saying, you know, moving forward, everybody, this really is about the ask. We need to vet these candidates going into 2020. Right, and we're here. So, what say you as we close out, Sister Phyllis?
Well, as I said before, it's still one vote per person. So it doesn't matter how much money he spreads around. It's still one vote per person. Unless he's buying everybody vote, all the millions of people that are voting, which he can't do. It's not likely. So he can spread it as much as he wants. I don't give him that much substance or credit. I mean, he's just another millionaire trying to get the presidency. He's bored, billionaire. Maybe he's bored or something. I don't know. But I just don't hear many people talking about him. He's just there, you know, like the 11th one on the list that you don't get much about.
Mrs. Dowling.
even though he has no balance, but because he is a billionaire, times over, you do get 6 because he has been you can't turn on the news station without his hands, and no other candidate can because they don't have that time to spend. And now what a ad does, it puts that person in the best light that they want you to understand. Like it's putting that ad across this nation of him and Obama. Now, everybody that I talked to saw that ad. Some people were telling me Bloomberg was Obama's. So you didn't see the ad. I said, yeah, I saw the ad. Saying that. I said, well, you know, Obama wouldn't have let him put that ad on if he didn't want him to, you know. Clearly he's supporting him in then there are other people that got angry because they said, damn, Obama's getting in this. And now, because he said that he wasn't going to get in this, he wasn't going to support any candidate. And now all of a sudden, he's out here supporting Bloomberg because he's got all this money. So it does matter, Phyllis. He has been out there, maybe not in the traditional way that we would like, going to having town hall meetings, which he hasn't had any, or not going to having smaller focus groups and stuff, which he hasn't had any. So he has been out there influencing people's opinion, and the way he has done it is because he does have a lot of money.
Well, I'll say this. Before coming here, I did not follow Bloomberg, and I really wasn't looking up the candidates. I pretty much waited until 10 and then on the but it has been very, very enlightening to hear the conversation that you had, and I agree. I think that we should have some level of, we should put some things on the table of what we want, and if it doesn't meet our needs, then we shouldn't support it, but not just because African American community, it's just for all communities. We really shouldn't support that. We're talking about putting somebody in the place of being our president, and we're already going through enough. So that's what I think.
But I'm glad that you got something out of it.
I did.
Just because it's your president and we have to be engaged. Oh, girl, you gonna say something? Come on now, I love it.
This subject is so enlightening. To hear everything that was said, I truly thank God for each one of you. It's so enlightening. And to hear the deceitfulness and things that take place, it caused me to want to dig deeper to know more about the candidates. Like you said, just to see that ad with President Obama in it. If you're not a person like myself that's into it, you say, okay, that's who I should go for then. Because we're not, it's up to us to dig deeper and to know more about the candidates and to realize the different things. I got a text on my phone about, Bloomberg on my phone, a text, like you said, he got the money and he's doing a whole lot of things to get your attention. But I want to say I have been enlightened, I do, just by sitting here to have a cutoff, know this. I must have this in order to vote for this person. Like you said, it's like someone like the less of two evils. Okay, so what do that mean? You still have to have a point where you say, no, this line I will not cross. Because of this, they cannot have my vote. So you all have enlightened me so for me to go back and even help enlighten others even before the election.
Oh yeah, well, come back next Monday because we're talking about this. Because these are the issues that we are living and well, no, I want you Reverend and then I'm going to get you Vidalia and then you Reverend Nash and then you Dwight. All I want to say. No, come a little closer. And everyone, this is the producer of my radio show, the Santita Jackson Show. Vidalia Taylor, everybody.
All I want is everybody to come out and join. That's all I want. If you want to vote for Bloomberg, that's on you. Well, just come out and vote. Right? If you're not sure if you're registered, call 1-866 our vote. What?
Hey, don't we do that every day. Reverend Nash.
That's 1-866 our vote. Yeah, that's awesome. And I agree that.
And vote.org.
Yes.
And vote.org. Find out if you're registered. So, and I agree. I think that the most important thing is for everybody to vote. It's a primary. And so, you're going to have a choice whether or not you're going to vote. Somebody that you think best represents your views. That's how some people are going to vote. And it's just as intelligent for somebody to say, I'm going to vote for somebody who I think would beat the person that I want to beat, who's the most viable candidate. So either of those are ways of thinking that make sense. But the most important thing is for everybody to vote. be so focused on the presidential election that you miss very important down ballot races, the U.S. Senate across the country, and then here locally, we have a fight for the Cook County State's Attorney with Kim Fox, and so we've got to be very focused.
And Maryland Mosby, because
all
all
across
these
the
progressive
country.
prosecutors all
Yes.
across the country are having the same problem.
St. Louis,
Kim
the
Fox,
same. Yeah.
Kim Fox is having a problem. Maryland Mosby's having a problem. You go down to Ferguson. I mean,
Absolutely.
anyone who's trying to be a progressive prosecutor.
Yeah. I think Barr came out against progressive prosecutors.
Did he not?
Yeah. So
The Attorney General of the United States.
isn't that amazing?
And
The
it's-
times in which we live, I think that's the point. I mean, it's a critical point in history, it really is. What do I mean by that? Oh, I think that you know, there was a fundamental change once the Senate voted to acquit Donald Trump. He really, in effect, became above the law, and that dangerous precedent of the way that parties are being used to circumvent the law, circumvent the Constitution, the way that race is used to drive politics, the way, I mean, in a way that, you know, I think a significant proportion of people who call themselves white are determined never to really live in a multi-racial democracy. So it makes it very dangerous when it comes to protecting the vote, when it comes to extra-constitutional government. I think people almost by any means necessary are going to fight tooth and nail not to have to live as a minority in this country, as we've lived. And so it's going to be a very, very difficult set of fights for the foreseeable future. So it's not a time to draw back, but it's a time to organize and fight back.
White King.
The Bible says, let the redeemed say so. I would really like Bloomberg to start out by donating $1 billion just for recompense for the damage he did in the black community. It gives a lot of these kids an opportunity to make up for the shortfall, you know, and it shows some repentance on his part. And I think this is a precedent for if he becomes a president, what he'd be willing to do, what he'd be willing to put on the table in behalf of the constituency that all of them are counting the most on. Everybody that's running is running on the premise that somehow they can usurp the black vote. And many of them have not put anything on the table, even empty promises. They have just taken for granted that if I go to a black church and sing Amazing Grace, that I can get the black vote. And I think that is an insult to our intelligence and the value of our vote. And so I would really like to see each one of them begin to compete for the black vote. To say, here is what I want to bring to the table. The same way they compete for white votes. They compete against Trump. The same way. Is that okay? Here's what I'm willing to do. Is the farmers, I'm willing to pay the farmers. If I walk out and change them, not the farmers. They compete for those votes. And so that's the dynamic I'm looking for. I'm looking for respect. For them to value our votes and to impose value upon the votes. And that value is, here's the policy changes that I'm going to make in yours behalf. Thank you all for voting for me when I'm not taking this for granted.
Amen to that. And at the end of the day, don't treat yourself cheaply. You know, when I saw Mayor Bloomberg giving a speech just a couple of days ago, and on the front of his podium, Mike for Black America, I was struck by that. Well, I was struck by it because I said, we still don't know our worth. We still don't know how valuable we are. We still don't know that yet. And so because we treat ourselves cheaply, we are treated cheaply. And $1 billion to HBCUs which in 2009, by changing the loan system, pushed 40,000+ of our kids out of HBCUs. 28,000 to 40,000 black kids were pushed out of HBCUs. Hey, there's a lot that we need. There's a lot that we need, and we need to say, wait a minute. You know, it's a very funny thing. When you really, the virtuous woman who is elevated, treats herself a particular way, and when you treat yourself that way, don't other people treat you that way? Okay. When you elevate yourself, other people, you know, it's one thing, you know, how money makes money. When you look broke down, folks don't give you anything. When you look like you don't need money, when you're needy for something, you never get it. When you don't need it, you always get it. Right. I said when you're needy. Because you're needy, you get greedy. There's something that's off about that. But when you're not needy, you're good. Black people need to know just how valuable we are and all that we bring to the American body politic.
Yes.
He is not going to become the nominee unless he has a life of Black America. What is your plan? I'd be very interested in $1 billion to HBCUs. I would. We have got to have some requirements.
Some requirements.
I just wanted to read something. So he's 24. He lives in D.C. He said, I asked him about Bloomberg. He said he supports some democratic ideas around climate change, sustainability, and more moderate ideas on healthcare, but the biggest benefit is that he brings the party back towards the middle aisle, and he has the money to beat Trump. He says, but remember, he is the man that's behind the stop and person. And so, you know, and so my son is a Republican. You know, so he's like, you know, even though it was a smart move for him to do it, you still have to remember what was done and what he did.
Black folks are going to be Republican, we're going to be Democrat. My question is, my deal with you is that whoever you are you advocating for our people when you get in the room? That's all I want. I'm not asking you to be a Democrat. I don't want you to be a Democrat and get in the room and not advocate. Because I know them too. So the question is, when you get in the room, he should be unapologetically Republican, and I'm sure he is. That's right, and be that. Now, when you get in the room, advocate for me. Because when Reverend ran for president, you had Black Republicans, you had Black folks coming out. Pastor E.B. Hill, one of the most iconic ministers of the last century, switched parties. I remember him sitting down and telling me why Reverend had to run and why he was switching parties for the primary season. He said, if by some miracle he becomes the nominee, I'm be a Democrat to get him in there, because that's what it means that much. Wait a minute, that's principal politics. These folks, white people, are Democrat, they're Republican, they do whatever it is they need to do to achieve.
And recycle.
Okay. And so I'm just saying that's what we've got to do. Don't treat yourself cheaply. And you know what? And show me what you got. And that goes for Steyer, who is showing you what he's got, because he's depositing money in black banks in South Carolina, which is why he's moving up in the polls there. Because there's a business of politics. And he is hiring black vendors. My question is, show me what, Bernie, show me. Elizabeth, show me. Tulsi, show me. Oh, show me. Show me. I'm from Missouri. Love you all, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow morning on WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station. I'm so blessed, so blessed. He's on my show regularly. I got to get you up. Really get you on my show. You got to get on there. But because of all of your support, we have their #1 show. And we're growing. And we're going to have some great news for you next week. So we're growing. We're very, very blessed, because we just try to have conversations like that every morning on the radio. This will not be the last time you're all up here on Monday night. You got to come on, girls. We'll have some fun, and you'll have some rib tips too. You don't get up there because you look like you're scared. I That's why I love you all, everybody. See you tomorrow.